Got it. So I can read their notes, but I can't see their faces.
No, yeah, we have a webinar feature, so it's a little more like organized, but there is a chat function here that, like, if you ask any questions, that's the easy ways for them to see. Okay, yeah, so I'll let you introduce yourself. The floor is all yours, and if you want to talk about your book, a little about your experience, and then start to share your presentation, that would be great.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much for having me. Welcome, all of you. Thank you for joining today. Exciting to talk to you about the book that I recently wrote, but then also how you can be successful selling into retailers or even successful in your organization. So my name is Randy Ornstein. I've had a 22-year career in the beverage industry. So I started my career at IRI out of college at Indiana University, and then moved to Chicago, where my client was Anheuser-Busch. And for about 3 years, working for IRI, providing category insights for AB with the goal of trying to grow their category within the beer category with Anheuser-Busch products. And so a lot of data analytics, fun opportunity working in Chicago and St. Louis, and then had the opportunity to then work for Anheuser-Busch and have spent 15 years there. So basically 18 years working with AB. So been in the beer industry that entire time. My first 6 years with AB, I was in beautiful Bentonville, Arkansas, on the Walmart team, where we were a category advisor for Walmart and Sam's Club. And our job was to help the Walmart buyers with planograms, what items go on display, what items to put on promotions or in their ad features. And then I led category and space management for our national grocers and drugstores like Kroger, Safeway, Albertsons, Target, Meijer, HEB, Publix, Walgreens, CVS. So I've worked at pretty much every retailer in the US, and both on the category management side and then more recently on the sales side. So spend my career, first part of it on category analytics, utilizing data effectively to influence. And then I became the VP of sales for Walmart. Hi, Mike. Good to see you. Walmart and Sam's Club, which was Anheuser-Busch's #1 client. I won't reveal the numbers, but it was our largest business and more than double the sales of our next largest business. A stressful job, but amazing opportunity. And then after 9 years of working with Walmart, I told my boss, you got to get me off this account. I need to do something else. It was a lot. We launched a non-alcohol business unit, and I became the GM of that. And we did a partnership with Starbucks to launch ready-to-drink Teavana iced tea, which is a brand that Starbucks owns. And if you go into Starbucks, into their cafes, you could get any iced tea you get is Teavana. And Anheuser-Busch was in charge of bottling the product and then distributing it through our Anheuser-Busch wholesalers. And so amazing opportunity. I know there's a lot of startups here, but that was an opportunity to basically manage a brand from scratch, but don't need funding and get funding because we are invested by AB and Starbucks, and built that brand to a $30 million brand. And then we acquired Highball Energy. And then my last role there was managing our Beyond Beer business, which is the growth of alcohol today. It's basically anything but beer. So it's your hard seltzers. I managed the first ever hard seltzer in the universe. For those of you that don't know, Spike Seltzer was actually out before White Claw. It's now called Bon & Viv Seltzer, but it was the first ever hard seltzer. And that's a brand that Anheuser-Busch purchased. Babe Wine, Cutwater, or others. There's a distribution deal with Super Coffee and likes. So after my time there, I was ready for a change. I then joined 𝗀𝗲𝗋, and I've been there almost 4 years. A variety of roles. I've managed alcohol throughout, but I've had my hands in different things like drinks, CBD. First year managed the full merchandising team as well. And so enjoyed my career. It's been great. I've always enjoyed helping out others, trying to achieve their dreams or goals, and which is one of the reasons why I wrote this book. And so I'm first going to talk a little bit about the book, and then I'll talk about how all of you can successfully sell into retailers. And at any time, you could ask questions in the chat. We'll make this loose and fun. Don't need to be just me talking for an hour straight and babbling on. So when I was at Anheuser-Busch, as I mentioned, I had a great career. I got promoted 7 different times, and each promotion was a different level. And they have this sales development trainee program where every year they would hire roughly 30 college graduates. They go through a 6-month training program throughout the company. And then at the end of that program, there would be a small graduation. And periodically, I was asked to give a keynote speech at their graduation. And it was usually like a 10-minute speech using one slide on how I moved up the ladder at Anheuser-Busch. And I'd have like 5 tips. And one tip would be like, data is power. And here's what you need to do. Here's how effectively you would use data to get to yes. And one would be persistent. And here's what you need to do to continue to be persistent to again, to grow. And over the years, those employees that heard my 5 tips would reach out to me or come to me at different meetings and say, Randy, I still remember those tips that you provided. And I use them today, and I haven't forgot them. And so that kept sticking. I then formalized the tips to maybe 7 or 10. I would present it to my team every year, or I presented to new team members, and I just kept refining them. And finally, it hit me, I should try and formalize this even more and write a book. And so 5 years ago, actually, I started writing notes for what the book that I just launched is. For about a year, I lived in Montclair, New Jersey, commuting into New York City at Anheuser-Busch Chelsea office. And so for like a year on the train, I would start writing the book. Then my wife read it and she said, this is garbage. And she started taking over the writing. She is a psychologist and better writer than I am. And so now it is co-authored by myself and my wife, which is pretty unique. A lot of frustrations working with your spouse on a book, but also a fun experience. And she made it much better than it is today. Sentence structure. We got a publisher. I'm just taking a water break, a lot of talking. And then publisher said, you need to add more research into the book. And so we read a bunch of business books, psychology periodical reviews, to then validate the information that I put in the book that actually makes sense. And so the book is called Grow, The Essential Guide to Getting Promoted. It's a quick read, meant to be a quick and simple read. I consider myself fairly simple on the outside, so I wasn't looking for a complex book of 500 pages. It's a 190-page book that you probably could read on a 3 to 4 hour plane ride. It's broken down to 2 sections, 2 parts. The first part is more about everyday excellence. So it's like, here are tips that anyone on this call or any employee or any manager should be doing. One chapter is about like how to be a star employee in meetings. And meetings could be either on Zoom like we are here, or in-person meetings. I actually wrote the book pre and post COVID, and so was able to add a lot of elements from a virtual life. I am fully virtual right now at my job at 𝗀𝗵𝗆. We do have offices in a few states, but there's no mandatory nature to go in. And so my team is spread around the country. I've hired throughout the country, and we're fully virtual. And so how to effectively manage meetings virtually, but then also in person. And how to be a team player as well is important. While we're individuals here, we're all on a team. And so that's part of it, everyday excellence. And then the second part is how do you go above and beyond? And that's where I think I excel throughout my career, whether it's creating best practices, going above and beyond what the normal job responsibilities are of your job, how to present like a pro. And so whether, again, that's virtually in this setting or in-person meetings, whether it's in front of 5 people or 1,000 people, those can make you lasting impressions to your leadership. And then how to get the yes. And that's what we'll talk about today. So, and getting the yes could mean how to influence, if you are a supplier, which I believe a lot of you are, how to influence your buyers at retailers that you're trying to sell to. Or it could be how to influence your boss or leadership to get you more funding or get more resources or whatever you want. So I'm just reading the questions here. Love it. I will not be presenting slides. I will be discussing. So I have notes, but I felt it's important that if you want to, I'm happy to talk offline to anyone that wants to, but this will be more notes form and more stories versus slides. I didn't think it was appropriate to put together presentation slides. Hopefully that was good for you. I think it is being recorded as well. So yes, we will share the video after. So please, I could now see questions. So chat away. Love to see it. And I'm gonna, before some of these questions that I see, I'm gonna first talk about how to get the yes, because I think I will be answering these questions through the commentary of getting the yes. I didn't say it yet, but I will now. The book is called Grow, the Essential Guide to Getting Promoted. This is the cover of the book, just so you see it. And I have some endorsements and excited. Brian Kelly, the points guy, is an endorser. So the king of travel. And so great book. It's on Amazon and others. I will be giving away free copies to lucky people on this call as well. And so we could talk about that at the end. But let me now take some time to go over like the subject of what we're talking about is how to get the yes. So I've broken it out into like 4 key sections. And then there's like 2 other sections that are related. So one is know their business. One is use data to persuade, and I'll go over in each one, and I'll even give stories of my personal life. So it's know their business, use data to persuade, make the ask, and plan the post game. Those are like the 4 sections. But then it's also important to be trustworthy and to create connection. So know their business. So as a supplier, which I believe most of you are, if you are presenting to a retailer, then you have better have done your homework to understand the needs of that retailer, who they are, what type of products do they sell, where do they sell, basically as much information as you can about them. You'd be surprised. I know 𝗀𝗵𝗆 is a relatively newer retailer, but I get on calls with suppliers that are trying to sell me a product. They get on 𝗀𝗵𝗆 and they have no idea who 𝗀𝗵𝗆 is, or even how we operate or anything related to our business. And again, for those of you that don't know who 𝗀𝗵𝗆 is, we are a fully vertically integrated company that owns 100% of our inventory. And we operate dark stores prominently throughout the country. And so any product that we sell, we own. And when our drivers are only going to our dark stores to pick up products and deliver to the locations of the consumer's house. So there's no world that we operate in today where like our drivers going to a Walmart, a Kroger, 7-Eleven to pick up goods, or a restaurant. It's all 100% vertically integrated, which is how we deliver in 20 to 30 minutes to our consumers. And so like even showcasing like that is a conversation I've had 50 to 100 times just to explain the model. And again, I know, and the point of this discussion here is not to talk strictly about 𝗀𝗵𝗆. I've worked at every major retailer in the country, and I will be using more references to brick and mortar, but it's important that you understand the business that you're trying to sell to. It's important that if you can, go into their stores, walk the store to understand, look at the shelving of where your product would fit to see what are they selling, what's the price points look like, are they always on are there always promotions, are there EDLP, are there visible displays around the store? If you have a high-end item, like a very luxury item, and you're trying to sell into a store or a retailer that has only value and mainstream items, then maybe that's not a fit for your item. You know, like you want to do that homework before you mistakenly sell into a retailer where you're not going to be successful. I also would recommend you go onto the website. That's probably easier than going into the store. Every retailer has a website, obviously, or an app, and make sure that you understand the opportunities that are there for you. This will all help you in your pitch. You don't want to just sell the item that you're presenting, but you also want to showcase a full marketing plan to try and figure out what are you going to do to grow that item. A common question that I ask suppliers, if anyone's sending me a note on LinkedIn or email randomly, because we get a lot of those, before we even set up a meeting with them, because we just can't meet with every supplier, I asked one simple question: what are you going to do to make sure that your consumer buys your product in my retailer? Because selfishly, I don't care about how you're doing in other retailers. I only care about how you're going to sell in my retailer, in my stores, because that's what I'm bonused on, is the revenue of my department. And I want to ensure that if I bring on your product, that it's going to be successful on my app or in my stores. If you can get access to their data, I would review it. That could be syndicated data if they're a retailer that's on IRI or Nielsen, to understand how big their department is, or spins. Not always do all of you have access or could get it, but you know, even this community that we're in right now, I'm sure you could ask someone, you know, any like, how big is the drinks category or the snacks category? Is it growing or declining? It's always good to understand more about the business that you're selling in from that perspective. It's possible that the item that you're trying to sell is in a category that's like very, very small for that retailer. And again, it might not make sense. Use their language is important. Give you an example. If you're selling to Target, you call their consumers guests. That's how they call it. So you in your meeting, don't say consumer, say guest. If you are selling to Sam's Club, they mentioned that their stores are called clubs. And so again, you would never want to say, I would like my item in 100 stores. If I was a buyer at Sam's Club and you said that, then I would like immediately say no, because you don't understand my business. Like, you have to speak to me and how the world speaks, and it's club, not store. It sounds petty, but I want to make sure that when suppliers are presenting to me, they're actually, this is not just another meeting that they can knock off their list, but they've done their homework. They're committed to us, and they really want to drive business. I have a few more notes here. Your item will not work for every retailer as well. So again, unless this is like a big bet national launch where you're having $30 million of media and like you're just killing it, for most suppliers here, pick the retailers that you think will have the best success. You don't need to just blanket wide go into every retailer in a market that you're in. I get many emails from suppliers that send me a note saying, I have the, my item is perfect for your store, but they can never tell me why it's perfect. And so, and just because let's just pretend you're launching in Texas, that doesn't mean you just go retailer to retailer launching your item. Again, you want to be strategic and launch the retailers that make the most sense and where you'll have the most success. Because as you're trying to raise money, one of the most important things that if I was investing that I would look at is what is your repeat rate? And that means anyone could get your item, anyone could get an item to sell once, but then how do you get that consumer to buy again and again? And obviously, if they do that, that means they love your product and will support it. So that's know your business. Next is using data to persuade. And as I mentioned earlier in this call, my background is more on the data side, working with IRI, and then on the category management side at AB. And so I've believed I've always used data effectively in everything that I do, as simple as a simple request on how this brand is doing to an elaborate presentation. Like, it's important that you're using data effectively, and I'll explain how to do that. So I use a term, most of you don't know me, but if you did, a term called data is power. I think there's so much power in data. For example, at 𝗀𝗲𝗍𝗆, I'm able to look at every single consumer that shops on our platform. I know what they buy, when they buy, how often they buy, what time of day they buy, literally by hour. I know if you're a new consumer or an old consumer, not old, but like existing. Basically, what do you know, it's amazing. And so we're able to really make smart decisions using our data. I could tell you Walmart's data is very powerful. I know Target's is, Kroger, immensely powerful. There's a lot of powerful data out there that you could dig into to use for your advantage as you're selling in. I also get this comment. I actually got it yesterday. I won't reveal the supplier. They were trying to sell a new beer item to me and my team, and they wrote, "My brand is killing it." And that was it. And I'm reading this comment, "My brand is killing me." I'm like, that means absolutely nothing to me, because I have no, what do you mean the brand is killing it? You have provided no results of where it's killing it, what markets, which SKUs, anything related to sales numbers. And that's like I don't even know where to go with that comment. But I can tell you it happens all the time. I would say if it's not every 2 weeks, that I get something like that where there's no data to back up. You're trying to persuade the buyer to bring on the item, and just to say that your item is killing it doesn't give me confidence that this item will sell, because you have not backed it up with concrete data on exactly what's going on. If you have syndicated data, again, IRI, Nielsen, spins, then you should be leveraging that data to show how your item is performing against your core competition. And again, within your category, you should again, this is assuming that you're already in some retailers that are subscribed to that data, and you have access to the data. I would strongly recommend this when we meet with suppliers. I personally will ask those questions. I mean, that's like one of the first questions I ask is like, if they have not yet presented their performance, I'm like, where are you selling? How are you selling? How are you selling versus your competition? Which markets are your best, etc. If you don't have access to syndicated data, or you're not in any chain accounts where syndicated data currently buys from, then you would be using more of your shipment data. And these are shipments to retailers. Hopefully you have something hopefully you have some type of data to share, even if it is shipment data. It might not be data out the register, but at least it's data shipped. And I would also massage that data effectively to showcase, like, if you happen to be in 5 states, you should list out like what are your best states, what are your best SKUs. Are there retailers that you're selling to that are buying often, so you're shipping the same product to them often, which is a good sign. If you just ship product once and then not for another 3 months, then it's possible your item's not selling. I also get the example of they don't have a lot of data to share, which is not everyone does, but then they say I sold 100 cases to this one store, and I'm like, one store? Wow. Like, you gotta finesse it to make the case and be pretty strategic. I would also say be careful with how you use incrementality. Many suppliers present an item that says, my item is going to provide 80% incrementality to your category, meaning that it will very rarely or very hardly cannibalize what I already have. I would say that's untrue. I actually wrote an article about this, which actually just went live today. So I'm going to post it in the chat. You could read it after, of how I believe most people out there are using incrementality wrong. I'm not going to go into too detail here because you can read the small article, but that's an example that I would use. It's basically making sure that no one truly is going to know how incremental your product is, but don't be egregious in saying that this item's going to kill it. It's going to be truly incremental to your category. You don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. So that was know your business and then using data to persuade. Knowing their business is like pre-meeting. That's before you meet with them. And then using data to persuade is like basically the not seeing article link in chat. I put it, I just put it in there. Not sure. Patricia, I don't know if you could see it.
Yeah, sorry, your chat is only for hosted panelists. I will drop it. So everyone, some people are on the chat is also just like sending to me or Randy. So if you want to send your message to everyone, in the chat has like 3 dots on the right, and you can choose like everyone. Sorry about that.
No, all good. I'm just looking at these questions real quick. I actually think it might be easier just to keep going, and then I will answer the bulk of the questions after. So I said using data to persuade. That's like as you're putting together your deck, and then sort of then in your meeting. So the third one is like make the ask. So you're in your meeting with your supplier, retailer. It could be virtual, which is the thing nowadays, or it could be in person. Typically you have 30 minutes and that's it. And you're presenting your story of why your item makes sense for that retailer. And you don't want to end the meeting, not saying any of you would, but just end the meeting with that. You want to make sure that you're making many asks throughout the meeting. Quite frankly, if you have a 30-minute meeting, you're looking at like making 5, assuming you're also presenting not just like one item, but if you're presenting a few items in a few different markets, you want to make quite a few asks. And you want to be pretty specific and concise in those asks. You don't want them to be general. And so like I mentioned earlier, if you have a higher end item or a luxury item, then you should be being more strategic in your ask. Like I would like to have distribution in only your high-end stores. Most retailers subset their stores into value, mainstream, and premium. I know Walmart did when I was working with them. And so yeah, assuming that, again, that you don't have like this big bet item that you know is going to work in all stores, and you're trying to meet with this buyer for the first time, I appreciate when suppliers are more strategic and they don't just say, I'm in Texas, I want to be in all of Texas, but they're saying, I'm in Texas, my best growth though is in Dallas. That's where I'm putting my money. That's where my ambassadors are. And I'd like to test your product in Dallas first. And then if successful, we could then look at expanding. And so you're being very strategic. Most retailers are likely to test new items if they're unproven in the market first, before blindly saying, I want this in all stores. Very rarely at 𝗀𝗵𝗆 do we bring an item in all stores unless it's a, like a 𝗏𝗏𝗆 extension or a big brand that's already done, is already a top brand. If you're a brand new supplier, we're testing you in a market first. But you got to pick the right market. You want, that's your thing. Pick your market that you're gonna spend the money on. If you have multiple asks, I would rank them in importance as well. Don't, and maybe your last slide of your deck is like all of your asks concise together, and then it's fairly simple, but make sure you're ranking them. If you're meeting with a few people, make sure you know who the decision maker is. Typically, you could find that out in the meeting. And try and like speak, don't alienate the other people in the meeting, but when you're sending out your your follow-up, you want to make sure that you're trying to pinpoint to that one person as well. So that's important. I think this actually happened to me yesterday, and I was on a quick 5-minute call with a supplier, an alcohol supplier. It was not a sales meeting. It was more of a quick question that the supplier had wanted to ask me. And I wasn't prepared for this meeting either. It was just like a casual conversation. But at the end of the meeting, again, it was only a 5-minute meeting. The guy said, is there anything you need from me? And so like, that was my cue to make an ask. So as I'm the retailer, I'm asking, yes, I need you to, they just launched this new item, happens to be like a big bet national item. And I wanted to make sure that we can get distribution in all stores as quickly as possible and blah, blah, blah. And so it was like, if someone's going to ask you, if that's like your cue, again, it doesn't matter if you're a supplier, retailer, or this is internal and you're just selling to your own boss. Your cue is if there's anything you need from me, then that's your opportunity to give an ask. And I would take that and use that. And then last about making the ask is like using a win-win approach. There's always a negotiation process with selling. You want to make sure that both sides leave that meeting that they both got something out of it, that they both felt like they won. You don't want to leave the meeting where you felt that you won, but the other side wasn't. They felt, oh man, I just got screwed because I said yes, and now the relationship might get a little rocky, or it might not be as if both sides aren't happy, you're not going to see the same engagement going forward. And then probably the most important is plan the post game. And so this is after you've already met, after you've already sold in your item. I don't want to then not hear from you for 6 months and when you're selling in an item for the next year. I want there to be not a lot of communication, but constant communication, knowing that you're on your game. One thing I would recommend all of you to do after you do meet with that supplier or retailer, within 24 hours, assuming that you're the one originating the meeting and making the ask, you should be sending a follow-up email within 24 hours with, here's a link to the presentation that we discussed. Here's my 5 asks, and here's when, if there's different owners, you don't have to make an action log unless it's like a bigger top-to-top meeting, but for like these quick sell-ins, there needs to be an action item of next steps. And I mentioned this, don't be overly communicative. Again, I'm speaking more on my behalf, but if we just met yesterday, you shouldn't be sending me an email every day for the next 2 weeks. Like, don't bombard my email box, be strategic in the emails that you send. And then I would say, then after, let's just pretend you sold in a new item, it's now in store. I would expect that you are then providing me with information, if you have it, on how that item is selling, good or bad. I would want you to be proactive. Let's just pretend that the item was supposed to launch January 1st, but you had an issue and now it's going to launch January 15th. You better give me or your buyer a heads up that this is going to be delayed 2 weeks, because your item might be on a planner, and then if it's not in stock, you're going to run into major issues when you're reporting back, or whatever. I mean, there could be so many reasons, but I would make sure that you're proactive with issues. I would make sure that you report back on sales if you're running a promo on your item, or that your item's on a display. And if you're able to get data, sometimes the retailer will be able to give you data, or sometimes they have a portal that you could pull. Or again, if they're an IRI or Nielsen or SPINS account, you could just pull it. And you should be doing a post-promo analysis every time you're doing something out of the ordinary, to continue to show. There's a supplier, beer supplier, top beer supplier, that does a great job of every time they're doing a program with us, they're emailing. I actually got 2 of them yesterday. They're emailing us, here's the program that we ran, here's the results from the program, and here's what we're going to do next time to make it even better. And I could tell you, in every organization I have done or have been in, the one thing that always gets dropped is the post promo analysis. We just had Super Bowl and Valentine's Day, and we're now working on it. But a few years ago, we did all this stuff to plan for Super Bowl, but then we never figure out how it actually went. So those are my 4 key points to getting the yes: is knowing the business that you're selling to, using data effectively to persuade, making sure you're making asks, and then making sure you're following up and planning the post game. I have 2 other related comments, and then I'll get into all these questions that you so graciously provided. So one comment is being trustworthy. And so this is important. I didn't put in those 4 because it fits all 4 of them, but you should make sure that you're doing what you say you're doing. And what, don't lie to us. If your item is supposed to launch on, again, January 1st, but you're probably not even going to have a wholesaler by January 1st. Like, be proactive and be real. And I'd rather you be real to us and delay a launch than to lie, because that shows character. I'd say don't promise and under deliver as well. So don't tell us, I know that this product is going to, again, kill it for us and don't say that I know this product's going to be your #1 item. And then after 6 months of looking at it, it's not even in the top 10. Like, no one knows what it's going to sell until we actually start selling it. So be more strategic in how you pitch. Again, very rarely is an item going to just crush it off the bat without anything behind it. So trustworthy is really key for me. And then second is creating connection. This doesn't mean that you have to be best friends with the person you're selling to. But relationships are really big in this industry of CPG. Yes, data will make decisions, but relationships do as well. And personally, if I don't have a good relationship with someone that's trying to sell to me, or it's just the way they're presenting puts me off, why would I want to continue to, or why would I want to sell that product and then having to talk to that person on an ongoing basis? Like, I have so much stuff going on. I'd rather talk to people that I connect with, I have a good relationship with, and it's something that I'm looking forward to. Because again, as a retailer, I'm fighting every day to make your brand successful. And so I want to make sure that I just think that creating a connection is key. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to like figure it out and use I'm trying to think of the right word. Not every buyer or a category owner wants to build a relationship with their suppliers. Heck, I don't have a relationship with every supplier. But then also not everyone wants to reveal so-called personal information or have like personal talk. You know, there's some meetings I'm in where the first 3 to 5 minutes are like more personal. How is the weather is the most common question, which again, everyone likes to ask. Or and if you see that that person's engaged in a little bit of the personal talk, then go on a little bit with it and build that connection. As you uncover information about maybe their family or about their hobbies, I would recommend that you write that down for your personal notes, whether it's in your where you keep your phone, you know, their contact information, so that the next time that you talk to that person, could be a month later, could be 3 months later, who knows, you could actually bring up some of that, and you know, then that buyer's like, oh my God, how did you remember? You actually already knew because you wrote it down. So it's like figuring out how to make those notes, and then know when signal on or signal off. And so there's some times where it's been a long day. I don't want to talk. I just want to get right down to business. So you're not going to have a chance of getting anything out of me. Let's just talk, get down to business, and then let me move on to my next meeting. I don't have time for personal chat. But there's other times where, you know, it's a little bit easier in person to do that. But there are times you could catch a buyer or a category owner to gain more personal talk. And I think over time, again, and whether it's in virtual or in an in-person setting, whether you're taking that person out to dinner, lunch, or an activity, it's important to build connection and relationships with the people that you're selling to. So that is all of that information, maybe not to every single detail, is in chapter 8 of my new book, Grow, the Essential Guide to Getting Promoted. And so you would probably thinking, how is that in the book? Because the book is more about how do you get promoted in business or in your job. And so by you getting the yes with your retailers, you're more apt to moving up the ladder because you're having success. Like you need to be successful in the job. If you're a key account manager or sales manager, your job is to sell your product effectively. And the more you get the yes than the no, that will help you in your career. So hopefully you enjoyed that. I'm now going to go over some of these questions. I see both in Q&A and chat. I guess you could pick whatever ones you want. I'm going to start in the Q&A. What do you look at when reviewing a product for 𝐀𝐲𝗵𝐵? You know, right now I manage the alcohol business, but I have teams, a beer team, a wine team, a liquor team, a hard and spike team. And so I'm technically not reviewing items. I let the team do that. But I'm looking at, will this item be successful based off of the demographic that we have, based on, is it like very niche, or is it in a big category that I know we sell a lot of? For example, on 𝐀𝐲𝗵𝐵, for some reason, we don't sell a lot of alcohol-free products, alcohol-free beer, alcohol-free wine, alcohol-free spirits. If you think about our consumer, which is mainly buying at night and is mainly indulgent consumer that is buying Ben & Jerry's and Flaming Hot Cheetos, they're not buying non-alcohol beer from us. They're looking to get drunk, quite frankly. And so now in BevMo and in Liquor Barn, which are large liquor stores, we do pretty good business of our alcohol-free products. It's a you know, a bit older consumer, more affluent. It's a specialty liquor store, and so we just, you know, it's just not a product that we even though it's growing in the market big time, it's not a key item for 𝐀𝐲𝗵𝐵. And then I also look at, I mentioned earlier, but what is your marketing plan to ensure that your item is going to be successful on 𝐀𝐲𝗵𝐵? And as I mentioned prior, again, I do it less and less because now my team manages the assortment. I can't do everything. But I would actually have the supplier send me a few pages of their marketing plan to us before we even met with them, because we were getting so bombarded from emails from suppliers that I needed them to be a little bit more strategic in who we actually spoke to on the phone. And if I liked the marketing plan that was presented, then we would talk to you. And then quite frankly, if we didn't, then we would keep the conversation more on email than on phone or Zoom, and probably say, hey, when you get better sales, come back to us. Do you have any affiliate partnership programs whereby you integrate with spice exporters? I don't really know what that means, if I'm being honest. So you might have to restate that question. Based on data, what would you recommend be an ideal velocity number for a bigger retailer like Whole Foods, Sprouts? So that is it's an interesting question, but it also, the answer is going to be, it depends, because it depends on what your item is. I'll give you an example. So when I worked with Walmart for many years, and again at Anheuser-Busch, we had different hurdle rates for craft beer versus domestic beer versus value beer versus flavored beer. And so because, and this is, I'm going back almost 10 years too, but I know Walmart's changed a little bit, but they still go after a lower income demographic. And so your value and domestic beers, these are like your Bud Light, Miller Lite, Coors Light, Natty Light, Busch Light, move much faster than your craft beers, higher, IPAs. And so at the time, I know it's changed, but the hurdle rate was like the domestic beer must sell 4 units per week per store to stay in, whereas craft beer only had to sell like 1.5 units per store per week. And so velocities will differ based on your product. If you're more of a mainstream product, then your velocities are going to be, your hurdle rate's going to be harder to hit versus like more of a niche product, because a retailer needs, the reason why craft beer was a lower hurdle rate is because it sells lower, but they also need to make sure if they want to be an authority in alcohol, they have to have a wide assortment. And if all craft beer also had a 4 unit per week hurdle rate, they would probably have like 20 or 15 or 10 craft SKUs left out of like the 100 that they might have had. Not all, they would literally kill their assortment. And so at 𝗀𝗲𝗋, we also do wellness drinks don't sell it as well for us as your Gatorades and Coca-Colas of the world and waters. And so our core categories like water, sport, and energy and soda will have a higher hurdle rate than some of our more healthier wellness products like kombucha and coconut water and stuff like that don't move as fast, might have a higher ASP, average selling price, but also are important to build out a broad assortment, because we don't want to just be known for, call it mainstream items. How Manuel wrote, how a startup can attract the attention of a buyer versus a recognized brand. For example, I produce gluten-free flour and compete with Bob Red Mills. How can I agree with the buyer in this situation? I think it's like, it's the +1, not the and or. So one example is hard kombucha. I know pretty much all of the major suppliers, and they're actually like, even though they're competitors, their job is to make sure that they're not, I say this cheeky, but they would in my conversation, they would rather have multiple hard kombuchas on the shelf from many suppliers than just theirs, because then it builds more of an authority on the shelf. There's more, the consumers, there's more shelf space because you're carrying many different companies of brands, and it shows that like they've made it like. And so I think the recognized brand is always going to be there. You're not trying to compete against them. Yeah, you might be taking a little bit of market share, but you're unlikely to dethrone them, you should be pitching why are you different than that brand? Who's the consumer that will buy your brand versus the recognized brand that you mentioned? Like, what are the attributes? There's always unique things, unless you're a complete copycat. And if you're a complete copycat and mimicking, then there's no reason why a retailer would bring you on, because literally if they brought you on and removed the other one, like there would be no transfer of sales. Hopefully I answered that correctly or to my best knowledge. Can you share a best practice of using data to persuade, especially when a supplier data can be limited? So in this case, if you don't have any supplier data from that data, like use any data you could get, and you could mask it of use from another retailer that you're in. You know, sometimes I wouldn't, it's your call if you want to mention the retailer. Usually they're mass. You got to be creative, I guess I would say. If you have a wholesaler that is distributing your products like a UNFI, maybe they could tell you how your item is performing against your core competitive set. Like, there's always ways to get data. It doesn't have to be specifically from the retailer, assuming that you're trying to sell in and really trying to promote. How often is often is a question. I know that was written like 20 minutes ago, so I'm trying to figure out. I think it was when I'm planning the post game on a post follow-up, and remember that everyone's getting hundreds of emails a day, and if you're going to send an email, I'd rather it be more strategic than just like a one-sentence email that means nothing. So I've already mentioned that, you know, within 24 hours of your meeting, you should be sending up a follow-up. And then if that person's not responding, you know, I think like every week, if email's not working, get on the phone and call them if you can, or text them or something. Again, everyone's different. So it's hard to say how often is often. I think you have to gauge the buyer that you're talking to. But I would say within a week is good if you're really trying to be on your game. How do I show sales data from cash sales? I've never worked with, I don't know. I'm trying to think. Like at 𝗀𝗵𝗆, you can't use cash to sell. I guess if you're like at a farmer's market and that's how you accept products, maybe it's just like any other data, assuming that there's a record of it, and whether even if you're putting it into some software to manage your business, it's like showing weekly sales. You know, the biggest thing that I like to see is trend and growth. And so when someone is sending me an email of a product, I immediately go into IRI and check it out. And if I see that your product is down like 30% year over year, I'm probably not going to talk to you, or I'm probably going to just say you're not the right fit. But if I see your item is growing every month, then to me, that means that your item is resonating. With the rise of last mile delivery services and many retailers implementing online ordering systems, how do you view the importance of digital merchandising in traditional retailers? I mean, I think that's key. At 𝗀𝗵𝗆, we're only as good as our app because we don't have walk-in stores. And so we're constantly looking at the app to create a better shopping experience. And so I would expect that our suppliers also are constantly going on our app, seeing how their item is merchandised. Do we have the right pricing? Do we have good images, high quality images, the right product description? Is your item in the right category, etc.? Like, you should be going on our app and finding the best places for it, and making sure that if it's not, it's got to be your own. You know, I don't want to keep repeating it, but that's what the consumer sees. And so if they're not seeing your item in a good way, then they're not likely to buy it. I'm just trying to, I know we're almost out of time. I was looking at some other. Patricia, how are we going to do this giveaway? The book giveaway.
Okay, hi. Thanks for the presentation. That was super good. Okay, so for the giveaway, we can either select the first person that asks a question in this webinar, or we can select after do like a raffle on everyone that was like attending the webinar.
Mm-hmm.
What do you prefer?
I would say I will I will, because I'm very nice, I'm going to give away 3 books to this group.
Oh.
And so we could do 2 random, and
Okay.
then maybe I could go through the questions and pick what I thought was the best question.
Oh, sounds
Most
good.
insightful, and I will and then I could pick that person. So
Okay.
2 will be fully random, and then 1 will be the best. Yes, I know, Bianca, so sweet. So do we, we're out of time, right? I know there's more questions, but this is it, right?
Yes, unless you want to say like 5 minutes more and just answer like 1 or more 2 questions, and if people are okay staying a few minutes longer too.
Cool. So if you want to leave, go for it. And if you want to stay, I could last 5 more minutes. And I'm just going to go now in the webinar chat and just see if there's anything there that I could there's a lot of intros, which are good. That's the same question. What line items with an IRI do you pay most attention to? So definitely, I mentioned that trend, dollar growth and dollar trend. You have to be careful that if you're a relatively newer item that's only been out for like 18 months, your dollar trend is going to look amazing because you're comping only like 6 months of data versus like having a full year. And so I look at that, like, don't tell me you're up 1,000% in IRI when it's only because you had $100 last year and $10,000 this year. You know, that's unfair, and that's, in my mind, is not trustworthy. Like, I'd rather you, I would look at more dollar growth. And then I also look at average weekly dollars per store selling, or average weekly units per store selling. So in a store level, how much are you selling per store? Those are the 2 big metrics that I look at. For the first step of actually getting a convo with the retailer, what's the best method? Phone call, email, go in store? How much detail? It's definitely not phone call. I'll tell you that. I don't accept any phone numbers that I don't know anymore. I get too many spams. So do not call me. And that's me. Again, everyone's different. But I'm using general. I would say email for sure. You know, I look at my email more than anything. I get a lot of LinkedIn emails too. Look, I'm getting a phone call right now that I'm declining because I'm on this. But personally, while I have LinkedIn, I get emails there. They're not like in my email. So it's like sometimes I look at them, but I might not look at it every single day. Whereas email, I'm looking at like every minute. You could usually get a buyer's email from an investor, from a friend, from somewhere. I mean, I get like 3 to 5 emails a day from suppliers that I know I never gave the email to, but they somehow got it, which is not bad. But I would prefer email. And how do you hook a retailer to get the first meeting? I think maybe there's like a one-pager, a nice one-pager that showcase your items. Again, a little bit of your performance. You don't want to like reveal everything, but you want to I want to be intrigued, like, oh, that's it. I've never seen that type of item before. Let me meet with them. And I might go on your Instagram to see how many followers you are. you know, if you only have like 100 followers, even though you're a brand new brand, like I need to see something that will believe that this could be something worth my time. We just did that. What's the best approach as an overseas product, especially with totally new ingredients? If there's not many data's out there. I mean, there's always, it's a tough one. You know, I'm not an expert in overseas products. I would say, I think I would go back to the beginning. It doesn't matter where your product is from. You got to know who you're selling to. And if you don't know, then I want to say figure it out, but try and find the information. There's always data out there. It doesn't have to be syndicated data. I think I'm going to end it there. I will be at Expo West for any of you there. I see Jake said that. I'll be there Wednesday and Thursday. So happy to meet up with anyone if you want to talk more. But most importantly, I really appreciate all of you, and hopefully you'll buy the book, not just for yourself, but for your employees, and that you'll enjoy it, and then make a rating or a review, because why not?
Thank you, Randy. As I mentioned, we are going to send this recording probably like later today or tomorrow. Randy will also be at our Allie ready party, even though that he's going to be walking the show too.
That's right.
Yeah, I appreciate so much. I'm going to do the raffle after the call, and then I will reach out to the people that won. But thank you so much. Is there like a way that people, I know that you're in the Slack, but what's the best way if someone has a question? Can they reach out, or you prefer like? Yeah,
I'm in the CPG Slack, and so you could literally just send me a note. That's easy. If no one's in there, I mean, my LinkedIn's fine, Randy Ornstein. I'm pretty simple. I'm not going to give out my phone number here, but
yeah, for sure. No, yeah, it's Slack or LinkedIn. That's great. I check
both. Yeah, Slack. We use Slack for 𝗀𝗵𝗆, so I'm in it all day. It's like our common thing. So,
yeah. Well, awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks so much to everyone that stayed here until now. And I guess I'll see you everyone back in Slack or Expo West. And it was very nice meeting you. I mean, at least seeing you.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Have a good day.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Bye.